some advice, recommendations.
Do your research.
Yeah.
Then all we hear is, you can Google me. No, you can Wikipedia me. They don't take care of the place very well, so there's lots of mold or like,
Hello everyone, today we are in the Shiny Souls Club podcast again, and we have Aisha with us, and she's going to explain a little bit of her experience here in Korea. And first, please introduce yourself a little bit.
Okay. So, my name is Aisha, as you said. I'm from Canada. Let's see. I've been in Korea about 4 years in total, on and off. Yeah, and I work here as a teacher for now.
Nice. So, why did you first came to Korea, the first time?
The first time was as an exchange student in Daegu. It was more just like my university had lots of international students. Many were from Asia. So it was a little bit easier to make friends with other Asian students. And then ironically, most of my friends in first year were from Japan and Korea. So when I wanted to go on exchange in my second year, Korea and Japan were my two main options, plus Spain, but that was more because they had a good business school, not really because I wanted to go. Yeah. And then the Japanese schools didn't have, at least the exchange ones, they only had Japanese language classes, but not towards my major, which was business. So yeah, and then it just made more sense to go to the exchange school that my other friends from Korea came to. So that was pretty much why I came the first time, for 1 year.
And how was the arrival at the first moments?
Usually it never hits me until I've actually landed in the country. Even when I get on the plane, get off, I'm still like, doesn't really matter. It hasn't hit me yet. And then my arrival definitely was one of the weirdest things because I didn't know how taxis worked. I didn't know how necessarily the buses worked. So I remember the first time I needed to get to my Airbnb, I took the airport bus, but it didn't take me all the way, but it took me close enough. But then I had to take a taxi because I had too much luggage, but I didn't know how to flag a taxi, and I didn't know if the light is on, does it mean the taxi is available, or is it off, is it not available? What does it mean? Yeah. So I stood on a curb for 40 minutes.
Oh my God.
Trying to halfway, because see, if I came from New York, maybe I'd know how to flag down a taxi, but where I'm from, we don't flag taxis down, so I wasn't sure, am I supposed to flag it down like that or what? So I stood there half-assed flagging it for a good 40 minutes until this random Korean guy came up to me and was like, what are you trying to do? Oh my God. And I was like, I'm trying to get a taxi. Yeah. And he was like, you're not going to get a taxi from here. They're not going to stop here. Okay. Because I think there was no way for them to pull over because it was maybe a busy road. So he helped me move my luggage to a more taxi-friendly area and then helped me get a taxi. And then he gave me his business card. But then I lost it. Not that it was important. But that was that. And then also when I reached the Airbnb, it was in a building. And there was a house in front. And there was these ajumas that were in front. And I didn't understand that much Korean. But I know they called me... I'm not going to say because it was... It was a swear word. And then I was just what? Because I think they're wondering why am I even there? But it wasn't even their house. It was their house was next to the building. But then I showed them the address on my phone for and they were like, and they were like, oh, yuggy. And I was like, I know.
No.
And then, but my host was super nice. She was great. I was home a lot, by myself anyways. So it was a shared house thing. And I had friends there already in Korea. And that was in Seoul. Then once I got to Daegu, I had to take the bus from the bus terminal, which is another, and when I had to buy the ticket the first time, I wasn't sure how to do it. So I went up and I was like, oh, can I buy a ticket to Daegu? But at first it was I think I went to the wrong bus stop, actually, wrong
okay.
bus terminal first.
That
And then
happens.
I was trying to look for it on the thing, and I couldn't find it in the English. And then a woman behind me was like, "Oh, like, what are you looking for?" And I'm like, "I'm trying to get to this bus station." And she was like, "Oh, okay," and walked off. And I was like, "Weren't you going to help me?"
I only ask you.
And then I found that I was at the wrong terminal, so I went to a different one. Then I just gave up. I went to the front desk and I asked, and she booked it for me. And she was like, "Oh, the bus is leaving in like 3 minutes, so quickly get there."
Wrong.
But I had like 2 bags of huge luggage, so I obviously did not make it in time. The bus left, and then I went back upstairs to be like, I missed the bus. And she was like, okay, she booked the next one. And then I went downstairs just to sit there. And the bus driver who came, he was actually really super nice. Like, he was really like chatty, even though like I couldn't speak Korean that well. He would speak very slow and ask like very basic questions and stuff like that. And then he even like bought me a coffee.
Oh my god,
And then
that's
he
so
would
nice.
just sit and like just chat.
Wow.
And then the ride was pretty simple, easy. Then when I arrived in Daegu, my friends were waiting for me at the bus like exit, and then he was also like, "Oh, have a good time in Daegu," and stuff, the bus driver. So it was overall kind of okay. So that was
Ups
my
and
first
downs.
experience of it. That and experiencing like Ilicha, Icha, and everything.
Good experiences. So what are you doing now? So first you came to study, but now you are doing teaching.
Now I'm doing teaching mostly because of like after effect of the pandemic. It was easier to get a job in Korea and at least have some stability where it's like, okay, housing is covered, so is like health insurance is also covered. But I mean, Canada it's free, but not that good. And I just didn't have to worry about like, I mean, the biggest expense people have is rent. And if one of my biggest burdens could be taken care of, then that'd be great. So yeah, now I'm teaching. I did start off teaching elementary, middle school, but now I'm teaching kindergarten because I just want to shut off my brain and not really have to like, you know, teach intensively and that kind of thing. And it's been interesting. I've been able to work at like different sized like academies, hagwons. I haven't worked public. Tried to apply to public, never got in. Okay. Thanks, Epic. So I just accepted hagwons. I mean, hagwons, you make more money than Epic, so
hagwons is private.
Yes, hagwons are the private academies. So they usually pay more, but it's more work, obviously. I've been able to work at like medium size, small, and like large like hagwons. So it's interesting to see how each type functions and how they operate.
Do you think that kids are quite different from other countries or from Canada? Can you feel it?
I do. I think that at least at my current school where the kids are a little bit more fluent already in English, but actually some of them might not even be able to speak Korean that well, so you can't really call them bilingual. I don't know. But they definitely have a much larger vocabulary than most kids in Canada at their age. Like 4 or 5-year-olds will like talk camouflage and then go in depth about something they're super interested in. They'll ask all like the in-depth questions about like why is the solar system like this, or like why is blah blah blah. Whereas, and then they can do a little bit harder math equations and stuff like that. Compared to Canadian kids, I would say I haven't ever taught in a Canadian school before, but I do have like younger siblings, so comparatively, I would say they're a little bit more educated, but it depends on the place too. Yeah, maybe. Because in Seoul, it's more competitive. Whereas when I used to work in like smaller cities, the kids were like same as other places.
Yes. Any cultural difference that you found when you arrived here in Korea compared to Canada?
Cultural differences, maybe probably the one that most people always say is like the work culture. The work culture is definitely different. Like, I mean, it's frustrating, but also nice if you're on the receiving end of vacations, you know, because it's like I might need to call like the Canadian government offices for something, and then they'll be like, oh, the person you need is on vacation for 2 months. Call back in like September, and it's like, I hate that. But then it's also envious because wow, every year you get 2 months off. But then at the same time, it's like, but I need you. So and then whereas in Korea, it's always like, oh, do you really need to take that time off? Can't you like push it back, or can you like?
I cannot.
I mean, it's always can't you like push it back? Do you really need it? Even though it's like in your contract, and you're like, I'm taking what I was like promised or given, but then always they try to make you kind of like feel bad, or try to like make you feel like you shouldn't take it because like, oh, you're inconveniencing other people, but it's like, that's not my problem.
They are made for resting, for making our work better later, for our minds relax.
So I don't know, like probably that's. But I mean, I've heard about that kind of thing. I think for me, I never really had like any major culture shock, just because I already knew what to expect.
Okay.
Because in my first year, most of my friends were Korean. So I didn't really go in thinking like, oh my God, like this is so different. No, it's like, no, they prepared me. I already knew. So nothing really shocked me when I came, when it was like people would be like, oh my gosh, like this is so weird, or that's such a, but I'm like, it's Korea. I already
if you are prepared, then it's not that sort of
so I don't think I really had any culture shock really, apart from like the working, but that's not really culture shock, more of a grudge, a culture grudge, not a culture shock.
Like I don't agree, maybe, but I knew before, so it's not shocking. I understand. And which one was the worst experience here in Korea?
That one, I thought about it really hard. I couldn't really.
Oh, that's good.
I couldn't, and I think it's because when I thought of like bad experiences, I thought of Japan. But then the thing is, I've never lived in Japan like as a employee. I visited Japan maybe for a month or something like that, and usually it wouldn't be the whole time. Maybe it'd be a particular city. Like if I had a bad interaction with like a local or someone, then that makes it feel like, oh, I don't really like that city that much. Osaka, but in general, I do like Japan because I do have lots of friends there and I like to visit. But I don't live there full time. So those few interactions will have a bigger impact on how I see it. But whereas with Korea, it's like I live here and I've been here for a long time. So always, even though I might have run into a weird or bad situation, usually I have more good experiences that end up making me forget about the bad ones. So then they don't last long in my memory because it always gets rewritten as something better. That, and also things probably go over my head. Like I've told people before, like I've had friends who get mad like for me at someone else. Like whenever someone would say something or do something, and I'm like, why are you mad? And they're like, aren't you mad? You should be mad about that. And I'm like, no. And then I'm like processing because maybe it went over my head and I didn't understand because someone could like maybe be insulting me or whatever or saying something, and then it would just go over my head and be like, oh, okay. And then maybe later, like 3 weeks later, I'm like, hey.
Why? I mean, it's good that for some part for you, like, you don't get it. So you are positive and why? You should think about it, like, don't worry. But sometimes maybe, yes.
So.
As a friend, like, I was like, I hate it.
So I think that's the only thing. Like, maybe there'd be instances like in Daegu where people will like stare, but then like I wouldn't really care. But other friends would other non-Black friends, for example, would get mad. Like, why are they staring? I'm like, I don't care. Like, whatever. Like, it's nothing that deep because again, Like,
Yeah.
I already knew going in.
Yeah.
And I think when I first came, I purposely did my hair blue and in braids because I'm like, I'm gonna stand out anyways.
Anyway, yeah.
Might as well go blue.
I think that's how we feel sometimes. It's like, I don't care what I do.
Yeah.
I look different. Like, I cannot do anything.
Yeah. So I remember I was on a bus and all I hear is, because of the Korean shutter sounds, all I hear is click, 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 click. And I'm like, turn around so much, and she's like taking pictures of my hair. But that was only Daegu, not Seoul.
Yeah. Here it's like maybe less than another place. Or it's not common to find more foreigners.
I feel like if you're going more up north Seoul, where a lot of the elderly live, you might run into them more. Yeah, but we live like down south near like Gangnam and everything. There's nothing. Yeah. No, it's not that new. Yeah, it's not that new or innovative. We're just regular commuters.
Yeah. So which one was the best experience then?
Best experience, oh my.
A lot of best experiences.
I mean, I would say it's more just like good experiences of like getting so many like different kinds of like experiences, meeting all sorts of people, and then getting to like I think because I chose not to live in Seoul in my first few years, I was able to like explore more of like Korea in general, because I know that Seoul has so much going on. Yeah. That even on like, we're already lazy to go on the other side of the river. So how much more can we want to like go down out of Korea? Yeah. Even though it's such a convenient like country to be able to travel out of, it's not too expensive, especially compared to Canada. So I think it allowed me to kind of like visit new places, see new things, meet more people. And I would say like, probably, I wouldn't say it was the best experience, but like maybe one that I can always continue to tell as a story, which is when like my friends and I ended up meeting like a baseball player and got like VIP tickets. Oh, that's so good. To a baseball game. So that was like fun. And obviously because we were foreigners, we stuck out like sore thumbs. So that was pretty fun. And it was a day like where we got no sleep at all, because it was just like, because we were out the night before at like a bar, and then we were like wrapping up the night, and we're like, let's go stop by a pizza place, you know, to get that cheese in before you go to bed. And then he was there, and he was like, oh, he heard English. So then he turns around to like talk to us, and then at that point we were kind of already fed up with the night, because the whole night it was like, we wanted a girls' night, and then guys kept interrupting like every place we went to. So we were like, whatever, ignore him. And then I think one of our friends was humoring him and chatting with him. Yeah. Then all we hear is, you can Google me. No, you can Wikipedia me. And we turn and we're like, Who are you? Who are you? We have a Wikipedia page. So after that, it was pretty much like, oh, he got his ticket. We went, but at first we thought like the next day was actually like April 1st. Yeah. So we were like, April Fools? Like, because we didn't hear anything. Like we went to bed like around like 5 or 6. Yeah. The game was at like, I think 12 or 1 or something. Okay. So we didn't have much time to sleep. And we were like, is he going to really message? Is he really going to give us those tickets? Yeah. Like, we were like, and then we woke up and we were all living in different rooms in the dorm. So we were like, let's meet up, let's get ready. Right. It's easier to go back to bed than it is to get ready in a rush. So we got ready, met up, was at a restaurant, like trying to cure our hangovers. And we were like, do you think he'll actually? And we're like, okay, maybe not. Maybe I'm like, it's April 1st. Maybe it's April Fool's joke. You know, just let it pass. So we were about to like, you know, give up when he messaged us, and he was like, yeah, you guys can meet me here at the stadium. I'll give you the tickets, blah, blah, blah. So we went, we got the tickets, we got photos, and then we watched the game. But it's more surprising that he also was at that
late hour in there.
Yeah. But it's because he wasn't playing the next day.
I was like, how
he wasn't playing the next day.
What's that?
He's a pitcher, but then he pitched the Saturday game, but he wasn't pitching Sunday's game.
Okay, now
That's why he wasn't there. But his manager was with him saying, like, let's go. The whole night, the whole time. He's like, let's go, we should go. And he was like, oh, come on. Like, so it was, and I think half of us, we were four.
Yeah.
Half of us didn't know how baseball worked and the other half did. So we spent the whole game explaining, this is how baseball works. And I think by the time we were like at the second inning, we were already tired of baseball. We were like, oh, this game is so long.
Right? Like, I don't know how it's.
And then I suggested to my friends, before we like go, should we ask him to get like signed autographed balls? So one of us messaged him and we didn't hear back. So then when the game ended, we were like, we didn't hear back. It's okay. It's like, it was already a good game. We watched, we took pictures, let's go home. And we hopped on the bus and it was like super packed, but we got on like the last 4 seats in the back. And then my friend who messaged him, she doesn't have data. So she was like, can you hotspot me? And I was like, yeah. And I hotspotted and she was like, he replied. And we were like, what? And then we're like, we're on the bus. And like we were about to go like just one stop. Okay. And we were like, do we get off? And we're like all looking like, do we get off? And it was like, well, we already didn't sleep enough anyway, so let's go. So we push the bus button, we get off the one stop, march back to the stadium just to go get, and he was there waiting, and he was like, yeah, here are the signed balls and everything.
Wow.
We got a few photos, and then you could see like, a lot of people were like, cool, were like around, like, oh my god, that's da-da-da-da-da. And they were like, we're getting like signed balls. There was a guy who was glaring at us really bad, like, we're getting those balls. And then one guy was like brave enough to kind of like come up after we took our pictures, and he asked like the baseball player, can I take like a picture with you? And then he gave his phone to his girlfriend to take a picture of him and the player. But it was interesting.
This is a good experience. This most interesting.
An interesting April Fool's.
Wow, yes. Nice that wasn't like a joke. And talking about best and worst things, like about the normal living in Korea, like life here, which will be like the best and worst things?
I would say the worst thing, probably sizing of apartments and places. Yeah. Especially the deposits. I think that's one of the things that hold people back from like owning anything. Yeah. Because in most, I mean, I don't know about Spain or other countries, but like usually we don't pay deposits. We usually pay first month and maybe last month's rent. But here it's like deposits, and the deposits can like range depending on like
really different. Yes.
So that's, I think, the most difficult thing, because when you move to Korea, it's like I'm supposed to have $10,000 in my bank account ready to go for a deposit. Like that's crazy. And then the sizing of the rooms also is pretty like, and I think in a lot of buildings too, what a lot of teachers, I guess, have an issue with is like the mold in their buildings. Like they don't air them out well. Landlords do not like really take care of the properties well. So especially in like villas, they don't take care of the place very well. So there's lots of mold or like, dirt that like other tenant left and something like that. Yeah, and the bathroom's getting all wet when you take a shower. That is also not fun. Probably that, and then the lack of sunlight in some buildings, because everything is so built so close together that sometimes, depending on your neighborhood, and then like it's uneven territory. Yeah. Sometimes the garbage places are not like that well, like separated and stuff like that. So just little things like that, I guess. But in general, maybe the good thing is probably the transportation. Yeah. The transportation is probably like the best, especially with Canada compared to Canada. I remember working part-time and I had to buy like a monthly bus pass, and it was like $200 for a month, and just to be in one zone. Yeah. Oh my god. And in Korea now, at least we have the new bus, the new pass,
the card,
the card that lets you like take the bikes, the trains, the subways, everything for 65,000 won. That's
really good.
That's really good.
Yeah.
It's here. The transportation's good, and I also like delivery costs as well. Compared to Uber or Skip the Dishes. Like, it is a huge difference in that cost. Like, you don't have to, and no tipping. Especially when you're not even dining in. Yeah. They don't guilt you to, like, tip even though you're not dining in or you're just doing takeout or that kind of thing. And taxi. I really like the affordability of taxi here. Like, if I ever feel like, oh no, I'm in a rush and I really need to get somewhere fast, I'm not afraid to, like, flag a taxi or take a taxi if I need to get somewhere. Whereas, like, I would never do that in Japan. Yeah. And in Canada, it's kind of like, do I really need to? Like, let's think about this really hard before I, like, accept that Uber or taxi. Like, But in Korea, it's kind of like, oh my God, I'm going to be late. If I take the bus, I'll be like 10 minutes late. If I take taxi, maybe I can arrive exactly on time. Let's take the taxi. Yeah. You know, the most I've ever paid for a taxi in my whole time here is maybe 25,000 won. That's maybe the maximum I've ever spent on a taxi. On average, usually it's like 9 won, 10,000 won.
Yeah, it's so good.
Yeah, it's really, really good.
I think here it's really convenient, like transport and like all life in general. They make it really comfortable and easy.
They made it really comfortable and easy because they want you to be able to work.
They
have to make everything else convenient so that you can work efficiently.
Yes, that's true. And any advice about different, like anything you can think about for other women living in Korea that are thinking to come here to live in Korea?
I would say have a plan. Like, you don't have to have like a concrete plan, just like an outline idea of what you want to do. Because I've met so many people that like just come and they're like, yeah, I'll figure it out as I go, which is fine. But then I think it depends how unplanned are you. Yeah. I think recently there was this one, I mean, I don't have TikTok, but I got it late because I'm the type who is like, it has to come to Instagram after being on TikTok. It comes to Instagram, then someone posts it for me to find out because I don't use TikTok. So there was this one thing about like a American, I think. She just like booked a one-way ticket to Japan. Okay. Only had like a few thousand, not that much in her savings account, went to Japan, no plan, no nothing, no job. And then after like 2 or 3 days of being in Japan, she realized that it's too expensive. So then she flew to Thailand. And then she was like staying up north, I think near Chiang Mai or something. And then she was running out of funds. She had less than $100 left and took a bus to like from Chiang Mai to Bangkok and from Bangkok to Pattaya, the beach areas, and had less than $20 left after taking that bus. And she's like making like a TikTok about how her struggles and blah, 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 and how, you know, God will see her through, whatever. And then how she's like maybe trying to like couldn't find a job, tried to know some expats, and people have been destroying her online pretty much about what kind of irresponsible nonsense are you like trying to promote. You don't just go somewhere with no plan, because she didn't even research Japan or anything.
It's expensive.
Yes, it's expensive. There, she did no research, no nothing. Just went poke on the map. Let's go here, and then shamelessly kind of post like, oh my gosh, I'm struggling so much. It's like, if you make bad financial decisions, of course you will struggle.
I mean, it's good to make this kind of adventures, but you have to think a little bit.
Yeah, you have to like research
or
a little bit.
Or be that kind of person that will work in anything, like they don't care. Or if they can also sleep on the floor, then okay, do whatever. But if you...
so that's what I mean. Like, if you at least have a plan. Yeah. Not like hey, let's just go here because that sounds nice. No, like at least research the place, learn about like this or that, like do a little bit of background thing. You don't have to know everything you're gonna do because some things you can't really do until you actually get there. So it's like at least having some of a concrete idea, you know, maybe being able to like book a place that you can stay for a month before you can find somewhere more local or cheaper. Just something as a footing, but to just be like, oh, let me just go here because you know. So I would say having some level of idea. And the second thing is like probably not having like a, what's the word? Kind of not having this, just shatter the image of like, you know, foreign people are so foreign, like, and different or special. No, everyone is the same. Everyone is pretty much the same.
It's true.
Everyone is the same. Like, don't think that, oh my gosh, like, and I think it's mostly with like, I'm calling some people out, don't kill me. You know, the people who are into like K-pop or idols and that kind of thing, and having this envisionment of like, oh, Koreans are like this or Koreans are like that, like, because it's like they're people.
They're
regular
like
people.
Everywhere.
Yeah, they're regular people. They work, they have families, they have jobs, like they're regular people. So just understanding that everyone is like a regular human being and not that like they are some level of like special sort of entity would be probably
can be dangerous to have this kind of idealization of people because at the end they are just normal
at the
people.
End they're just
good
people
and bad people and everything is same.
And every country it's like the culture hits different, right? Like it's more like if you were to meet like a Korean, like back in your own country, they would obviously act different because they're adopting to the country that they're in. Whereas in Korea too, if you come to Korea, then they're going to act the way most Koreans in the area would act, right? So it's just understanding like, you know, the cultural norms or ways that people act there. Because lots of people always talk about how it's difficult to make friends or Korean friends and that kind of thing. But then it's like, okay, well, think about it. How do most Koreans make friends? Well, through school. Because most of them have their like childhood friends that they've grown up with and that kind of thing. Friends from college, people they've dated, and then maybe workplace and da-da-da. So that's the way they mostly make their connections. So you just have to like adapt to that way. Like, okay, they make friends that way. And they're really big ghosters in Korea. They're really big ghosters, men and women. They're very big ghosters. Everyone is busy. I get that. And then people tend to fall off and can't commit to everything. You can always be like, oh, you know, I'd really like to add another friend to my friend circle. But then you're like, oh, do I have the time to commit to it? Because a friendship is just as big as a commitment as like a relationship. So it's understanding that, you know, people may ghost. And it's like people do that too in the West too. Like people ghost, even friends ghost.
Yeah, that's true.
But then people make it seem like it's less dramatic or less like
I mean, I think if you think about it, it will happen in every country. Like if I am in Spain, I already have my friends too, so it will be more difficult maybe to meet new friends or I mean, I meet new friends, but it's different because you already have yours. Maybe you go first to their old friends or so it's kind of like understandable that and also if you are here then you don't have this kind of friends and you don't have family it's more it hurts more
because you don't have that like stable friend group you can always run to. I think I remember seeing this one video of like this one YouTuber talking about like how when she moved to France the hard part was like making friends, and she was like the way her interpretation of it, don't kill me, was that pretty much, but I feel like this is everywhere though. Everyone has like their friend groups from like however long you've had them. Then you meet someone new that's a potential new friend. Most of the time you don't mix friend groups. I've had the experience where I don't mix friend groups anymore because they don't match. So everyone has different friend groups. And according to her, she was like, with French people, it's kind of like you are like a second choice option when it comes to hanging out. So for example, you could make plans with the person suddenly they cancel on you the day of or something earlier because their other main friends or real friends, I guess, or longer friends are free and want to do something. So you're seen as like less than as a choice, right? So you haven't built your way into becoming part of the regular routine of friendship. So, but I feel like that's everywhere though.
I mean,
because some people you'll definitely choose over other people. It's like, oh, if I can hang out with like one friend that I've known for a long time that I can be comfortable with, or a newer friend where I'm still learning about them, I'd rather choose a comfortable friend, even though I already made plans with the other one. But like,
it can happen everywhere.
It can happen everywhere. That's like
depends
a
on
thing.
The person and
because it requires different energy to deal with like different people.
That's true. And any other like suggestions, recommendations, like for example K-pop, K-drama, or places to visit here that you really like?
I mean, I'm newer to Seoul. I haven't even lived a year yet in Seoul. And I'm already lazy. And I feel like I haven't also traveled much since I moved to Seoul because of like work and then also like there's lots to do in Seoul, which is a problem with Seoul. Yeah. So you don't really go out of Seoul. Yeah. I would say if you can, don't come to Seoul first.
Like go out.
Go
like
out
which other
first.
cities did you like more?
I mean, I don't have mainstream opinion. Most people are like, oh, go to Busan first. Sure, Busan's pretty. I don't like Busan, but most people like Busan. You know, beaches and seafood and Busan, I guess. And they said the people are more chill. Again, I don't know.
I really like Gyeongju too. Like more traditional. I mean, it's small. You see
small.
it in one day,
Gyeongju
but
is a
it's
one-day trip.
Like cute and different too. Like traditional place.
And then trying things like Daegu. I heard Daejeon. There's not much, but like again. Daejeon, Daegu, Jeju. Yeah, Jeju is really good. Jeju, Yangyang, around that area, and Sokcho, like Seoul last because it'll take up a good chunk of your trip, and you don't need to go to Myeongdong to do anything. You can do your shopping elsewhere. I don't know if Myeongdong has recovered from COVID comparatively. Like there are so many other shops you can go to in other cities, but everyone just goes to Myeongdong. I guess because it's easier from the airport. Maybe that's why. Yeah, maybe.
Have you found any like Canadian food restaurant or place that you like here?
I'm not really into whatever Canadian. I mean, the only Canadian food I can think of is poutine, and I do not like poutine. I say that as a proud Canadian. I do not like poutine. And yes, I've tried poutine in Quebec.
For the ones
who are judging, no, I've tried it in Quebec, and I've gone to like all the famous places too. I was there just last summer, so I tried them. I just don't like poutine. It's like it's okay, but it's not like something I would like have to like go out of my way to try. I don't think I've ever heard of a Korean place selling poutine. I'm actually, ironically, I'm more into shawarmas. But I haven't found a good shawarma place in Korea. Like there's lots, especially in like Itaewon area. There's lots of, shawarma places, but I don't know. Canadian shawarma places just hit a little different. And I don't know why, but they hit a little different, and I miss having like some good shawarmas.
Let's continue searching. See. And something that you miss from Canada?
The banks being open on the weekends.
That could be a good one.
The banks being open on the weekend.
Wow.
That's probably because before I used to work in like elementary, middle school Hagwon. So we started around like 3 p.m.
Yeah.
So it didn't bother me because the banks I could go in the morning. But now I work at like a kindergarten Hagwon, so we start in the mornings and finish like 9 to 5. Or so the banks are closed by then, and I can't do anything at the banks, and they're not open on weekends. So maybe that's the only thing. Banks being open on the weekends.
The cold weather, no.
No.
I mean, here it's also cold, but...
It's cold, but like at least it's not like I'm not boarded in by snow.
Yeah, that's
probably the biggest difference. That and like it gets really really cold, and then there's blizzards and storms and snow everywhere, and you're fighting for your life. Like that's something I don't use.
And about teaching, for example, if someone comes here and would want to work as teacher, some advice, recommendations.
Do your research.
Don't do something.
Oh my gosh. Like, do your research. I can't even explain how many teachers I've met while living in Seoul that complain a lot about like their jobs and their situations and that kind of thing. I don't know. I could just be lucky that all the 3 like schools that I've worked for, even like my past internships, they were all really good bosses, pretty good work. Like nothing was perfect, but they were all like decent to some degree. Each had like their own faults. Like maybe this one, we felt overworked and underpaid. But then they make up for it for like, trying to be more accommodating and things like that. Or if it was a smaller place, you had more issues. So but in general, I've had a decent time working at most places. I've never left on like a bad note or anything like that. Yes, I think people still come here to teach because it's like a holiday. Or as a way to like, live their K-pop dreams, but it's kind of like it's still a job. You're still a teacher. It's not a vacation. If you want to do a vacation, come on a working holiday. Just save up your money.
It's hard to do the teaching job. So
it's a real job. It's not like you're just here to play or something like that. You actually have to work. You actually have to show up, perform, because people are learning from you. Especially when, I get that it's like, okay, you're hiring people who maybe their major is in English. Okay, cool. And we're, I guess, fortunate that we don't even need to have a major in English or literature or something, because I know that EPIC, the government schools, are starting to like change. Before it used to be like they'd hire everyone or anybody, but now I heard that like now they're only specifically going for people who had majors in English or literature or something. Whereas Hagwon still accept you if you have any sort of bachelor's. Some prefer like maybe you have a TEFL or TESOL or something certificate. But we're fortunate enough that you can get a job where you only have to have a bachelor's degree, and you can have a place usually rent-free and that kind of thing, with no experience most of the time. So not every like country has that ability, right? Like it'd be great if like if you could go to like another country and teach Spanish because that's the language in demand and you have all those benefits. Like, so it's like kind of taking it kind of for granted. And then usually on like teacher formulas or teachers talking, it's always like the Western, and by Western I mean usually the Americans. Some Americans, some Canadians, and also like occasionally UK, but always kind of talking about this job is like trash, or like like just a lot of negativity a lot of the time, where it's kind of like this. You can make what it is and take advantage of that. But I think the greatest thing is just do your research. Like, take the time. Don't rush it. Take the time. Research the place. Just, push through with it. Sometimes, like, definitely, I've heard, obviously, those horror stories where people are like, their schools are so bad. They treat them badly. Schools will maybe, like, the principal or director might verbally, like, abuse them. or, you know, micromanage them to this degree or extreme. Okay, yeah, like those situations, I've never met anyone in them or whatever, but, you know, that's something else, right? And some of those things you can't necessarily account for in an interview or whatever. Fair. But then there are also the situations where it's like, people are like, oh my gosh, like they're asking me to do so much work or whatever. It's crazy. And it's like,
work.
Okay, it's work.
It's Korea.
It's Korea, it's work, you know. Just get through it, get your severance and move on. You know, there are other countries you could go to as well that maybe are less work. People now are always saying like, oh, let's go to China because in China you can make more than in Korea, and the starting salaries are much higher than what Korea would offer you in starting salaries. Plus, you can also have more holidays than in China. But then again, it's like, you know, you have to adapt to the Chinese environment. Then there's also people who say, oh, go to Thailand or Vietnam, you know, warmer weather, warmer climate, more chill, more work-life balance, right? But obviously the pay is a little bit less because you get that balance. So, and then Japan is its own thing. There's all those good and bad things. So I think just doing your research, asking questions, and like not rushing into a decision. Because lots of people end up rushing or kind of closing themselves into like a box, like, oh, I only want to be here. But it's like, you don't know Korea, you don't know Seoul. How can you know that like this is the only place you want to be? It's the only place you've been. Like, I'm not calling anyone out, but like, well, actually, no. To give an example, it's like, you know, lots of people want to stay in Hongdae because Hongdae is like the young student area. But if you're a teacher, it's like, I mean, I've known some people who stay in Shincheon because that's where all their friends live and that kind of thing. And it's like, fine. If that's your own place and you can get there easily, fine. But then it's like when you're trying to find school housing and then you're trying to look for a school in Hongdae, especially if it's like with younger kids. With adults, it's fine. There's lots of adults, hagwons and like our academies, and that's fine. But if it's like with kids, it's like Hongdae is not a kid-friendly area and it's not really like a... And, you know... If Hongdae is all you know, then I mean, you haven't even experienced anything. How are you to say that like, oh, I only like Hongdae. Hongdae is everything that I want to. But it's like, there's more outside of Hongdae, and then there's so much more outside of Seoul. Like, don't limit yourself to that in that degree. So it's kind of like a waste.